What's up everyone? So my name's Andrea and I'm a Tutorbox tutor here to tutor you guys English. So welcome to Tutorbox Live in conjunction with COVID-19 courses. A little bit about myself. I'm a BCom law student studying at Wits. University is not that bad, guys, just so you know. Like, don't worry, you'll get through it, and you'll get through it with my help in English, which is very useful in university, guys. Like, you need to know how to write your essays, you need to know how to speak coherently, you know. English is important, and I'm here to help you guys. So this lesson is for you grade 10s. We're gonna work on grammar and punctuation, and I know this is confusing because I got confused with this section. Independent and dependent clauses. Yes, it's very confusing, but I'm gonna clear everything up for you guys. Don't you worry. Okay guys, so grade 10 grammar and punctuation. Today we're going to be looking at independent and dependent clauses, also known as subordination and coordination. So we're going to start off with independent clauses. These are sentences that can stand alone. It is the simplest sentence that you can write. It consists of a subject and a verb that can stand alone. Remember that a subject is the who or what that performs the action. And remember that a verb is the action word, so like run, jump. Remember that you can have two independent clauses joined together by using a comma and a coordinating conjunction, or with a semicolon and a conjunctive adverb. Now I know these terms are confusing and not that memorable, but as you go along, and hopefully you'll be able to understand it more and remember it better. Remember that a coordinating junction is fanboys. I'm sure you've heard this before. Fanboys. These are coordinating conjunctions. For and nor, but, or, yet, so. A conjunctive adverb is an adverb that's able to connect two ideas. I know this is very vague, but as you go along and do the exercises, hopefully you'll see that it makes sense. So for the next part, I'm going to go through the exercises / examples with you. And then I want you to take a moment to try and answer them for yourselves. So the first sentence is, I love you.
Aww.
This is a basic independent clause and can stand on its own. For example, I could just go up to someone and tell them that I love them and just say I love you without having to add anything to that clause so that it makes sense, because it just makes sense on its own. Now I want you to think about what is the subject and the verb in the sentence, and I'll give you some time afterwards to answer all the questions in red. The next sentence is, I love you and you are kind. These are two independent clauses joined together. We spoke about what this means on the previous page, so I want you to think about what is the coordinating conjunction in this sentence, and also what is the verb and the subject in both independent clauses. Because as you can see, there's two independent clauses in the sentence, which is I love you, and the other independent clause is you are kind. These both make sense on their own and don't need any other clauses to make sense. The third sentence is I don't like broccoli. Fortunately, you didn't make any for dinner. This sentence is longer than the previous two sentences, however, it is still only two independent clauses that are joined together. So I'm not going to tell you guys the answers now because I want you to take time and try it out for yourselves, and then I'll give you the answers in the next two segments. So for the third sentence, what do you think is a conjunctive adverb in this sentence? And what is the subject and the verb in both independent clauses? You'll see that the first independent clause is I don't like broccoli. The second independent clause is you didn't make any for dinner. Now on to the fourth sentence. I am at the front door. I am delivering your pizza. These are again two independent clauses joined by just a semicolon. What is the subject and the verb in both independent clauses? The first independent clause would be I am at the front door. The second independent clause would be I am delivering your pizza. This is because I can say both these sentences separately but still make sense. So therefore there are two independent clauses that are joined together by the semicolon. Okay, so now to go through the answers with you guys. So for the first sentence, I love you, the question is, what is the subject and the verb in the sentence? So the subject would be I. This is because I am performing the action of loving you. So because I am performing the verb, I'm performing the action, it means that I am the subject in this sentence. I'm sure then you've gathered that love would be the verb. The second sentence is I love you and you are kind. So the first question for this sentence is, what is the coordinating conjunction in this sentence? I hope you all picked up that the coordinating junction in this sentence is the word and. Remember from the first slide that I showed that two independent clauses can be joined by a comma and a coordinating conjunction. This is definitely the case for the second sentence. Remember that and is a coordinating conjunction because it is part of fanboys. It is the A in fanboys. The next question for the second sentence is, what is the subject and the verb in both independent clauses? So let's look at the first independent clause, which is I love you, the same as the first sentence. We've established that I is the subject in the sentence and love is the verb in the first independent clause of the second sentence. So looking at the second independent clause of the second sentence, it is you are kind. So the subject in this sentence is you. The word are in this independent clause would be the verb. Looking at the third sentence now, I don't like broccoli. Fortunately, you didn't make any for dinner. Again, these are two independent clauses. The first question is, what is a conjunctive verb in this sentence? So an easy tip to figure out if something is, if you get this question, let's say, to know what the conjunctive verb in the sentence would be, is to first identify the two independent clauses. So we already know that the two independent clauses are I don't like broccoli and you didn't make any for dinner. That leaves out one word, which is fortunately. This word is a conjunctive adverb in the sentence. This is just an easy tip where you can quickly identify what the conjunctive verb is in the sentence. It's really helpful because there are a lot of conjunctive adverbs and it's unlikely or really unhelpful to memorize these conjunctive adverbs off by heart. So the subject and the verb in the first independent clause of the third example is don't like would be the verb. In the second independent clause, which is you didn't make any for dinner, the subject would be you, didn't make would be the verb. Now for the last example / exercise, it is I am at the front door, I am delivering your pizza. The first independent clause is I am at the front door. and the second independent clause is I am delivering a pizza. So, what is the subject and the verb in both independent clauses? The subject and the verb in the first independent clause would be I as the subject, and the verb would be am, because am is an action in this case. I am at the front door. In the second independent clause, the subject is I, and the verb is am delivering. There can be more than one subject and verb in a sentence. Just bear that in mind.
But what we're looking for is a coffee bean. Yeah. In the middle and a back.
Okay guys, so that is independent clauses done. I hope it helped you guys. But we're not finished yet, so keep that energy, because now we're going to move on to dependent clauses, and after that we're going to do common errors that students make when it comes to this topic. Okay guys, so a dependent clause is not a complete sentence on its own. So basically, it's the opposite of an independent clause. It has to be added to an independent clause for it to make sense. It also has a subject and a verb, however. The reason why this is also known as a subordinate clause is because it's subordinate to the independent/main clause, meaning that the dependent clause needs the independent clause to make sense. To connect the dependent clause to the independent clause, subordinating conjunctions are used. This is not the same as a coordinating conjunction, which are used in independent clauses. Subordinating conjunctions are just conjunctions specifically used to join dependent and independent clauses. Bear that in mind. Bear in mind the difference between a coordinating conjunction and a subordinating conjunction. Coordinating conjunction connects two independent clauses. Subordinating conjunction connects dependent and independent clauses. So just keep that difference in mind. Guess what, guys? It's another exercise. So I'm going to do the same thing that I did before, where I'll read through the questions and the examples for you, and then give you some time afterwards so that you can answer them yourself, and then I'll go through the answers with you guys. So the first example is, my dog barks whenever I shout at him. What is the subordinating conjunction in the sentence? What is the dependent clause, and what is the independent clause in the sentence? What is the subject and the verb in the independent clause? What is the subject and the verb in the dependent clause? Then the second example is, because my brother is awesome, I bought him a chocolate. What is the dependent clause and what is the independent clause in the sentence? What is the subordinating conjunction in the sentence? what is the subject and the verb in the independent clause, and what is the subject and the verb in the dependent clause. Just a little tip, as you can see, when the sentence starts with a dependent clause, a comma will always be used to separate the sentences. So guys, for number 1, the subordinating conjunction in the sentence is whenever. The dependent clause would be this entire part of the sentence. The independent clause in the sentence would be this first part of the sentence, which is my dog barks. Now, looking only at the independent clause of number 1, which is my dog barks, what is the subject and the verb in this clause? The subject would be my dog, because it is the dog that is performing the action, which is barking. Therefore, the verb in the independent clause would be barks. Now looking at the second part of the sentence, which is the dependent clause, whenever I shout at him, the subject would be I, and the verb would be shout. The reason why him is not the subject is because the word him is not performing the action, which is shout. Only the subject performs the action. Therefore, I is the subject and shout is the verb / action. Now looking at number 2. The dependent clause in this example is this entire thing, which is because my brother is awesome. Again, sorry for the circle being skew. The independent clause in the sentence is I bought him a chocolate. Now look for the subordinating conjunction in the sentence. The answer for this question is because. So that little because in the yellow is the subordinating conjunction in the sentence. Now looking at the independent clause, which is I bought him a chocolate, the subject in this sentence is I, and the verb in the sentence is bought. This is because bought is an action and therefore the verb, and because I am performing this action, I am the subject. So the subject in this example is I. Now looking at the dependent clause, the subject in the sentence is my brother, and the verb in the sentence is. So I know distinguishing between coordinating conjunction, conjunctive adverbs, and subordinating conjunctions can be confusing and you might get them mixed up. So hopefully these 3 little images will help ingrain the image into your mind of the differences between the 3. So fanboys is probably the easiest to remember. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. Remember that this joins 2 independent clauses. Conjunctive adverbs are another way to join 2 independent clauses. The key difference is that you need a semicolon and a conjunctive adverb to join the 2 independent clauses. So a nice tip is whenever you have a sentence that is joined by a semicolon and a conjunctive adverb and then a comma, you know that it's a conjunctive adverb. because it is used after the semicolon. Now moving on to the subordinating conjunctions. The difference between this and coordinating and conjunctive conjunctions and adverbs is that subordinating conjunctions are specifically used to join a dependent and an independent clause, whereas coordinating conjunctions and conjunctive adverbs only join two independent clauses. So having a look through some of these examples will just help you memorize which is which. So guys, now we're on to the last part of the lesson, which is common errors to avoid. So the first common error to avoid would be a comma splice. This is the use of a comma between two independent clauses. This can generally be fixed by using a full stop or a semicolon instead, or by using a subordinate conjunction. The common errors to avoid are best explained by showing examples. So looking at this example, which is, I like this class, it is very interesting. Although this seems correct and it seems valid, it is actually incorrect. This is because the part of the sentence, which is, I like this class, is an independent clause because you can just say it on its own and it makes sense. The second part of the sentence, which is, it is very interesting, is also an independent clause because you can also just say it on its own with it making sense. In other words, both of these parts of the sentences don't actually need other clauses to be added onto it so that it makes sense. So the different ways you can fix this are, I like this class, it is very interesting, using a full stop instead of a comma. This clearly indicates that there are two independent clauses. Now remember the very first slide where I described independent clauses. Remember that there are different ways of joining two independent clauses. One is using a comma and a coordinating conjunction, and the second way is by using a semicolon and a conjunctive adverb. The other way is also by only using a semicolon. So you can see this here, where the first part is, I like this class, broken up by a semicolon, and the second independent clause is, it is very interesting. Another way to fix this error is by saying, I like this class, comma, and it is very interesting. Now I hope you picked up that the word and is the coordinating conjunction of the sentence, and that's why you can add these two independent clauses using a comma and a coordinating conjunction. Another way you can fix this error is by using a subordinate conjunction. In other words, this would be adding a dependent clause onto the independent clause by converting the one independent clause into an independent clause. So just stay with me here. This part of the sentence stays the same, which is one of the independent clauses. However, by adding the word because, we automatically change this whole part of the sentence into a dependent clause. So before, it was just this part, which is an independent clause. Because we've added this word, because, it automatically changes it into a dependent clause. So therefore, the error is fixed by joining this independent clause and this dependent clause. The word because would be the subordinating conjunction in this case. So looking again at dependent clauses, this part of the last way to fix this error is the dependent clause, which comes first. Then a comma is used to separate it from the independent clause. So this is another way where you can fix this error. Looking at the second common error, this is called fused sentences. Fused sentences are when there are two independent clauses not separated by any sort of punctuation. This is also known as a run-on sentence. You might be familiar with this term. It can be corrected by adding a period, semicolon, or colon. So let's look at this example. My friend is intelligent. I learned so much from her. It's clear that there should be a break between these sentences, or independent clauses rather. One way to fix this is by breaking the independent clauses up into two by adding a full stop. So, my friend is intelligent, full stop, I learned so much from her. The second way would be by adding a semicolon. My friend is intelligent, semicolon, I learned so much from her. And the third way to fix this would just be by adding a comma and a coordinating conjunction. So it would be, my friend is intelligent, comma, and I learned so much from her. So it's important to know that and is a coordinating conjunction because it is joining two independent clauses. The one independent clause is my friend is intelligent, and the second independent clause is I learned so much from her. The third and final common error made by students are called sentence fragments. This happens when a dependent clause is treated as a complete sentence or an independent clause. So let's look at this example. The example is, because I forgot the exam was today. If someone had to walk up to you and just say, because I forgot the exam today, you'd be like, what do you mean because you forgot the exam? Because it doesn't make sense on its own. One way to fix this sentence is to completely just erase the because and say, I forgot the exam was today. Because then you can just go up to someone and say, I forgot the exam was today, and they won't be confused as to what you're saying. It's an independent sentence, an independent clause. Another way of fixing this error is by adding an independent clause to the dependent clause. So the dependent clause that's being treated as an independent clause is, because I forgot the exam was today. So to make this a complete sentence, you could add, because I forgot the exam was today, comma, I didn't study. This makes a lot of sense. You could easily go out to someone and say, because I forgot the exam was today, I didn't study. This is therefore a complete sentence on its own, as it has an independent clause joined to the dependent clause.
Go. Smile, for heaven's sake. Yeah!
So guys, this is our final exercise. You guys got through it. Cool. So again, I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the previous exercises. I'll read them through with you, and then I'll give you some time afterwards to answer it. And then I'll give you the answers at the end. So the first sentence is, assuming that she was hungry. What is wrong with this sentence, and how can it be fixed? The second sentence is, I am tempted to eat another cookie. I've already had 3 cookies today. What is wrong with the sentence, and how can it be fixed? The third and final example / exercise is, my dog loves to eat mince. It's his favorite. What is wrong with the sentence, and how can it be fixed?
Yes!
Let's look at the first example / exercise. What's wrong with the sentence is that it is a sentence fragment. This is because it is a dependent clause which is treated as a complete sentence. This just doesn't make sense because you can't go up to someone and say, assuming that she was hungry. The other person that you're saying this to would not understand what you're saying. So that's how I identify it as a sentence fragment. How to correct this is by assuming that and just saying she was hungry. Or you could add a comma and an independent sentence so that it makes sense, such as, assuming that she was hungry, comma, he bought her food. Moving on to the second example/exercise, it is, I am tempted to eat another cookie, comma, I've already had 3 cookies today. This is clearly a comma splice, as it is 2 independent clauses joined by a comma. Ways to fix this is by replacing the comma with a full stop. Another way to fix this is by replacing the comma with a semicolon. You could also add a coordinating conjunction after the comma and say, I am tempted to eat another cookie, comma, and I have already had 3 cookies today. The third and final example is, my dog loves to eat mince, it's his favorite. You can already see by reading this out loud that it doesn't flow well together and that it needs a comma. This is how you should identify it as a fused sentence error. You could fix this by adding a comma, but remember to add a coordinating conjunction after the comma. Otherwise, it would just be a comma splice error. So it would be, my dog loves to eat mince, comma, and it's his favorite. Another way to fix this error is by adding a semicolon after mince. And the last way to fix this error would be by adding a full stop between mince and its. So it would be, my dog loves to eat mince, full stop, it's his favorite. So that's the end of our lesson, guys. I really hope it helped you and I really hope you enjoyed it. We'll be having a Q&A session, so if you're confused about anything, you need more clarification, you need help with anything, please don't be afraid to ask and I'll help you out with that.
It's not a matter of whether or not we can. Everybody can, but not everybody will. How to turn nothing into something. How tangible are ideas and imagination? Ideas that become so powerful in your mind and your consciousness, they seem real to you even before they become tangible. Imagination that is so strong that you can actually see it. You can actually see it. If somebody cannot see it when it is not here, then it will never be here. Start looking into the future of what you would like to accomplish, and where you would like to go, the person you would like to be. Decide what you want, and then act as if you already had it. And that is to believe that what you imagine is possible for you. So the first step is to imagine what's possible. Second step, to believe. Now here's the third step, and that is to go to work and make it real. You now go to work and make it a movement. You make it tangible. You make it viable. You breathe life into it, and then you construct it.
You have a lot to offer. The fact that you're still here means that your business is not through yet. People don't do what they know in life, but what they do is they operate within the context of the vision they have of themselves.
So write and draw and build and play and dance and live as only you can. Make up your own rules. The rules on what is possible and impossible were made by people who had not tested the bounds of the possible by going beyond them.
You must change what's possible for you. You, and only you, are the subject that impacts the burning desire in your imagination. You are living and feeling as if your future dreams are a present fact.
Will it be easy? No. Will it be challenging? Yes.
So you got to prepare yourself. You've got to develop yourself. As long as you're breathing, you got some more work to do. There's something else for you to achieve. Guess what? You're going to make some mistakes. You're going to make a lot of mistakes.
So now go and make interesting mistakes, make amazing mistakes, make glorious and fantastic mistakes. Break rules, leave the world more interesting for your being here. Make good art.
It is possible to start with nothing and become something.